So this is a short video on how to get started with your micro essay. I call it a micro essay because it is one long paragraph. Really, it has all the pieces of a 5-paragraph essay just shrunk down. So there's no introduction, there's no conclusion. It's just that one long body paragraph in the very first sentence, collecting your final writing in 2 different ways. One, on this organizer, handwritten for 50 points. And then the other way is on a Google Doc where you're typing exactly what you wrote on this organizer. So when you submit it on a Google Doc, you'll do that by Sunday, the 20th of October by 5 p.m. I will then print out everybody's essay typed from the Google Doc in Google Classroom. I will bring them in with me on Monday, and Monday we're going to highlight and do some editing, peer editing, self-editing, and then you'll revise it, make the changes, and resubmit it on Google Classroom. So it's really a multi-step process, and that's what writing is. Writing is puzzling together these different ideas and phrases and words, and a big part of the writing on MCAS is called idea development. And so that's what we're really focused on this year, is zooming in on those universal ideas, attaching it to a impact or a tone word, and that is what builds our reasoning in our essay. So if you are a person who is still trying to write the thesis statement and you need one thesis statement to start as your first sentence, let's dig in to a thesis that you can use to jumpstart your essay writing. Find the yellow sheet in your notebook, go down to the bottom of the yellow sheet, and I'm going to use Jody's, so thank you for getting us going on this, Jody. So we have this word elicit that you should write in, which is right here, new vocab word to use. And then we have here, you're looking for 2 examples of imagery. Now in class, we talked about the images that are used in this text, which would be water. We talked about how water really signifies or represents or means. It could mean rebirth, renewal, resurrection. If we're thinking about water from the other parts of our lives and what we know, water with religion, water can mean life, right? And then you think about the river that she talks about in paragraph 1 and what that means when she adds the words blood-streamed river of her ancestors. So we're thinking about how this writer delivers a new meaning with the word river by adding in this blood-stained, streamed imagery. And someone said, this really doesn't read like a story, and they're right. This reads more like a poem. And so I want you, when you're reading, just to isolate images and pull them out like you would in a poem to make sense of the text through these core pictures in your mind. So imagery is really that fancy word for what do we see when we read the text based on what the writer is using in terms of maybe some sensory detail or objects that stand in for something else. For instance, the water. We talked about beading or beadwork, which is essentially in indigenous or Native American culture. There was the beading is very important because you're essentially building with handwork. You're extending a centuries-long tradition and making jewelry and making pieces of your own creation. And you're doing that in community. You're doing that with other people. It's highly skilled. It's a tradition. It signifies a cultural experience that is very important. It's like a ritual, right? It's something that people do together in this writer's culture. And so beading and beadwork, I think, is a really good image to focus on. So if you don't have a thesis yet, let's begin with beading. And I'm going to give you your thesis. So if you go down to your yellow handout, it says, in this text, Rock Ghost Willow Deer, author Allison Adele Hedgecock shows how the images of beading or beadwork, okay, and I'm going to give you the other image, blood, okay, elicit, bring out, and I'm going to stop right there. So right now, take a moment to write the first blank. The first imagery example for your essay will be beading or beadwork. And then the second blank imagery example will be blood for you if you don't have one. If you do have your own, fantastic, go with that. But if you don't, here they are. And then I'm going to zone in to paragraphs 6 through 8 for the beading. So make a note of that. And then for blood, you're going to read paragraphs 1 and 12. And you're reading those paragraphs just for those images and what those images bring up, bring out, elicit for the author, this person, Allison Adele Hedgecock. What does beading tell us about the author? What other words are around beading that would tell us about her character trait, her individuality, how she is as an individual? What is important to her? How she is impacted by her ancestors and her tradition. So that's what you're thinking of. So take a minute to do that, and you can pause the video and then restart. Okay, so the second half of the thesis, because we need something more in a thesis statement than just here are my two images I'm going to talk about, or here are the two images. So the second half has to be, okay, and what do those images elicit or bring out? And so they bring out a universal idea. Now,